Victoria Ashford had everything money could buy: a tech empire worth billions, a mansion with 23 rooms, and a reputation for being untouchable. But after 3 jewelry pieces went missing in 2 months, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She installed hidden cameras throughout her estate. Determined to catch the thief she was certain worked under her roof. What she discovered on those recordings wasn't what she expected, and when she watched the footage from Tuesday night, November 12th, she found herself crying for the first time in 15 years, not from loss, but from something she'd forgotten even existed. This is the story of what happens when suspicion reveals not guilt, but grace. Victoria sat in her private office, the glow of 6 monitors casting shadows across her sharp features. It was 11 p.m., and outside her window the Manhattan skyline glittered like scattered diamonds. Inside, she was hunting for a thief. The cameras had been installed professionally, discreetly, in the library, the dining hall, the corridors, even the kitchen where staff gathered during breaks. She'd spent the last week reviewing footage during late nights, watching her employees move through her home like characters in a silent film. There was Margaret, her head housekeeper of 12 years, dusting the same mahogany table 3 times because she had missed a spot. There was Chen, the chef, tasting soup and nodding to himself with satisfaction. And there was Marcus Webb, the night janitor she'd hired 6 months ago. Marcus was the newest addition to her staff, which made him the prime suspect. Single father, working 2 jobs, always arriving exactly at 8 p.m., in his worn blue uniform. He barely spoke during the brief times Victoria had encountered him, just nodded politely and continued mopping floors she barely walked on. Tonight she focused on his footage. 8:03 p.m. Marcus entered through the service entrance, signed the logbook. 8:15 p.m. he began in the East Wing, methodical as always, pushing his cleaning cart. But then at 8:47 p.m., something changed. Marcus stopped outside the library door, which had been left slightly ajar. He glanced down the hallway, then slipped inside. Victoria leaned forward, her heart racing. This was it. This was the moment she'd catch him. The library camera showed Marcus standing just inside the doorway, but he wasn't approaching the display cases where her late mother's sapphire brooch had been kept. Instead, he was looking at something on the floor near the reading chair. He bent down, and Victoria zoomed in on the screen. It was a book, a children's book, one she didn't recognize. Marcus picked it up carefully, running his hand over the cover. Then he did something unexpected. He sat down in the leather armchair, opened the book, and began to read aloud. But to whom? Victoria cranked up the audio, straining to hear his voice through the sophisticated microphone system. The little prince looked at the grown-ups. Marcus read softly, his voice warm and gentle, and he thought they were very strange. He paused, smiling at something off camera. Kind of like how you think I'm strange when I eat broccoli, right? Victoria's breath caught. He was talking to someone, but the camera showed he was alone. Marcus continued reading for 20 minutes, his voice never wavering, occasionally laughing at funny parts, making sound effects that would make any child giggle. When he finished, he carefully placed the book back on the shelf, exactly where it belonged. Then he pulled out his phone. The angle wasn't perfect, but Victoria could see him open a video call. A small face appeared on the screen, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with curly hair and sleepy eyes. "Did you like the story, baby girl?" Marcus asked, his entire face transforming with love. The little girl nodded, yawning. "The prince was sad, Daddy." "He was," Marcus agreed. "But he found friends, remember? Even when we're lonely, we can find people who care." "I miss you," the girl whispered. Marcus's smile faltered just slightly. "I miss you too, Emma, every second. But Daddy's working hard so we can have our own place soon. Ms. Rodriguez says you were very good today. I helped make dinner. We made mac and cheese." "My favorite chef," Marcus said, his voice thick. "Now you get some sleep, okay? I'll see you tomorrow morning before school. I love you to the moon and back to the stars." Emma finished giggling. After the call ended, Marcus sat there for a moment, his shoulders sagging. Then he wiped his eyes, stood up, straightened his uniform, and went back to work. Victoria sat frozen in her office, staring at the screen. For the next hour, she watched Marcus clean her mansion. He wasn't just going through the motions, he polished the banisters until they gleamed, arranged the books that had been left scattered, even watered a plant that was beginning to wilt. In the kitchen, He cleaned areas that weren't technically his responsibility. When he found a framed photo of Victoria's staff at a company picnic that had fallen behind the counter, he retrieved it, wiped it carefully, and placed it back on display. At 11:30 p.m., she watched him take his break in the service room. He pulled out a worn lunch bag containing a single sandwich and an apple, but he only ate half the sandwich, wrapping the rest carefully and placing it back in the bag. He spent the remainder of his break reading from a thick textbook, Introduction to Computer Science. Victoria pulled up his employment file. Marcus Webb, age 34, previous employment, warehouse worker, delivery driver, retail associate. Listed address, a motel in Queens. Emergency contact, Sharon Rodriguez. Victoria recognized the name as one of the social workers affiliated with a local charity her company donated to annually. She typed his name into her private investigators database, something she'd done for all her employees. The report was sparse but telling. Marcus had full custody of his daughter after his wife passed away 3 years ago from cancer. He'd sold their small home to pay medical bills. He was currently living in a motel while saving for an apartment with Emma in temporary foster care 4 nights a week when his work schedule made supervision impossible. He was taking online courses, trying to finish a degree he'd abandoned a decade ago. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. The final note in the report made Victoria close her eyes. Subject had been observed donating plasma twice weekly for additional income. She switched back to the live feed. Marcus was back at work, cleaning the marble floor of the grand foyer with the same care he'd shown everything else. As she watched, he paused by a side table where Victoria's assistant always left outgoing mail. A bill had fallen to the floor. Marcus picked it up, placed it back on the table, and weighted it down with a decorative stone so it wouldn't fall again. This was her thief? Victoria reviewed footage from other nights, fast-forwarding through hours of surveillance. Every night was the same. Marcus worked. He read to his daughter over video call, he studied during his breaks, he ate half meals. Never once did she see him pocket anything, examine her valuables, or even enter rooms he wasn't supposed to clean. On November 8th, the night her mother's diamond earrings went missing, Marcus hadn't even been working. He'd called in sick, and the scheduling log showed he'd forfeited the pay rather than ask for sick leave. At 2 a.m., Victoria finally admitted the truth to herself. Marcus Webb wasn't her thief. He was just a man trying to rebuild a life from ruins, working a night job in her mansion while his daughter slept in someone else's home, studying for a future he was desperately trying to reach. She had been so certain, so ready to blame the person who had the least. Victoria looked around her office, at the abstract artwork, more than Marcus made in 5 years, at the view that cost more per month than his entire annual salary. She thought about the last time she'd eaten only half a sandwich by choice rather than necessity. She couldn't remember. She thought about Emma, a little girl who should be reading bedtime stories in her own bed, with her father in the next room. Victoria Ashford hadn't built a tech empire by being sentimental. She'd built it by being ruthless, calculating, efficient. She'd fired hundreds of people without losing sleep. She'd outmaneuvered competitors without guilt. She'd been called cold, heartless, a machine in heels. But watching Marcus Webb care for a library book that didn't belong to him, arrange a photo of employees he barely knew, and tell his daughter about finding friends in loneliness, something cracked in the fortress Victoria had built around herself. She made a decision, one that would either be the smartest or most foolish thing she'd ever done. The next morning, Victoria did something she never did. She arrived at the mansion before her staff. At 7 a.m., she sat in the kitchen, dressed not in her usual designer armor, but in simple slacks and a sweater. When Marcus arrived through the service entrance to punch out after his shift, she was waiting with 2 cups of coffee. He froze when he saw her, his eyes widening. "Ms. Ashford, is everything okay? Did I miss something in?" "Sit down, Marcus," she said quietly. The color drained from his face. He knew that tone. It was the tone of ending. "Please," Victoria added, her voice softer. "I'm not going to fire you." Confusion replaced fear. But Marcus sat, perching on the edge of the chair like a bird ready to flee. Victoria slid a coffee across to him. "I installed cameras throughout the house. I thought someone was stealing from me." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I understand, and you need to check." "I saw you reading to your daughter," Victoria interrupted. "In my library. On Tuesday night." The blood returned to Marcus's face. But now it was crimson with shame. "Miss Ashford, I am so sorry. I know I shouldn't have gone in there during work hours. I know it was wrong. Emma loves stories, and I can't afford books right now. And I saw that one and just thought." He stood abruptly. "I'll clear out my things. Thank you for the opportunity. Sit down." Something in Victoria's voice made him obey. "I also saw you clean areas that aren't your responsibility," Victoria continued. "I saw you fix things that are broken. I saw you eat half a sandwich and save the rest. I saw you studying computer science during your break." She paused. "I saw you donate plasma twice a week to make extra money." Marcus stared at his hands. "I'm going to finish that degree. Emma and I are going to have a real home again. I just need time." "How much time, Marcus? How many more months in that motel? How many more nights with your daughter in foster care?" His head snapped up, anger flashing in his eyes for the first time. "I'm doing everything I can. I work 18-hour days. I don't waste money. I don't complain. I just need," his voice cracked, "I just need a chance." Victoria reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table. "What's this?" "Open it." With shaking hands, Marcus opened the folder. Inside was a contract. "Position, Technology Systems Administrator," he read aloud, his brow furrowing. "Salary, $95,000 annual, full benefits, housing assistance." He looked up, confused. "I don't understand. I'm a janitor. I haven't even finished my degree." "You're 6 classes away from finishing that degree," Victoria said. "I checked. And those classes are available online through our corporate educational partnership. You'll complete them on company time, as part of your training. But I don't have the experience for." "You've been teaching yourself," Victoria interrupted. "I saw the textbooks. I saw the certification courses on your phone. And more importantly, I saw how you treat things that don't belong to you. I saw you care for a building you don't own, fix problems that aren't your job, and maintain standards no one is checking." She leaned forward. "Do you know how rare that is, Marcus? In all my years running this company, I've met maybe 5 people with that kind of integrity." Marcus's eyes were glassy. "Why are you doing this?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Because 3 months ago my head of security told me I needed better surveillance systems. I ignored him. 2 months ago my IT director suggested we hire from within, promote people with potential instead of just credentials. I ignored her. And last week my assistant mentioned there was a hard-working janitor who always stayed late, never complained, and was trying to better himself. I ignored that too." She met his eyes. "I was so busy protecting my things that I forgot to see my people. The cameras I installed to catch a thief showed me someone I've been blind to all along." "Who was stealing from you?" Marcus asked. Victoria's smile was bitter. "My nephew. He confessed this morning when I confronted him. He'd been taking jewelry to pay gambling debts." She shook her head. "I suspected everyone except family. I suspected you because you were new, because you needed money. I suspected you because it was easier than suspecting someone I loved." "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "Don't be. You did nothing wrong. I'm the one who should apologize." Victoria pushed the contract closer. "The position comes with a 3-bedroom apartment in company housing, rent-free for the first year while you save for your own place. It's 10 minutes from an excellent public school. Emma can live with you full-time starting immediately." Marcus picked up the contract with trembling hands, reading through it again as if the words might disappear. "There has to be a catch. People don't just do this. The catch is that you'll work hard, you'll continue studying, and in 5 years when you far exceeded this position, I fully expect you to ask for a raise." Victoria stood. "Also, you're gonna help me redesign the security and IT infrastructure for all my properties. I need someone who thinks like you do, someone who fixes what's broken, even when no one is watching." Marcus stood too, his eyes red. "I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll take the job. Say you'll let me do something right for once." "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "You don't even know me." Victoria thought about how to answer. She could talk about corporate social responsibility, about investing in talent, about diversity initiatives, but that wasn't the truth. "Tuesday night you read to your daughter about a prince who was lonely until he found friends. You told Emma that, even when we're alone, we can find people who care." Victoria's voice was softer than Marcus had ever heard it. I've been alone for 15 years, Marcus. I built walls around myself made of money and power and suspicion. And then I saw you, a man who has every reason to be bitter, who has lost everything. Treat my home with more care than I've ever shown it. You still believe in kindness, even though life hasn't been kind to you. She held out her hand. You reminded me that there are people worth believing in. Let me prove that to you. Marcus stared at her hand for a long moment. Then, with tears streaming down his face, he shook it. I'll make you proud, he promised. You already have, Victoria replied. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the doorway of the IT department newly expanded watch. Marcus explained a security protocol to a room full of employees who used to be his superiors. He'd completed his degree 3 weeks ahead of schedule. Emma was thriving at her new school, and her artwork now decorated several offices in the building, including Victoria's. Margaret, the head housekeeper, appeared beside Victoria. You're smiling, Ms. Ashford. I didn't know you could do that. Victoria laughed, surprising herself. I'm relearning a lot of things. He's good for this place, Margaret said. Good for you too. You seem lighter. Victoria thought about that. The cameras were still installed throughout her properties, but now she used them differently. She watched for employees who stayed late to help colleagues who fixed problems without being asked, who showed kindness when no one was looking. She'd promoted 3 more people in the last 6 months based on what she'd observed. Her nephew was in therapy and making restitution. She'd been too angry to speak to him for weeks, but eventually they'd talked. She'd asked him why he didn't just ask for help. Because you don't do feelings, he'd said. You do business. He was right. She had done only business for so long that she'd forgotten everything else. Marcus looked up and caught her watching. He waved, and beside him, Emma, who'd been visiting for Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, waved too, grinning with her 2 front teeth missing. Victoria waved back. Ms. Ashford? Margaret said, I know this is forward, but thank you. For seeing him. For seeing all of us. Victoria nodded, her throat tight. Thank you for being worth seeing. That night, reviewing the day's footage had become a different ritual. Victoria no longer looked for thieves. She looked for moments of grace, the small acts of kindness that happened when people thought no one was watching. She'd started a program called the Webb Initiative, where employees caught on camera doing exceptional work or showing unusual integrity received surprise bonuses and recognition. She thought about all the years she'd spent looking at people as potential threats, potential losses, potential liabilities. She'd been so focused on what she could lose that she'd never seen what she could gain. Marcus had taken half a sandwich and turned it into something that fed them both, him with a new career, her with a new perspective. The cameras were still recording, but now Victoria understood what they were really for, not to catch people at their worst, but to witness them at their best, to see the acts of courage and kindness that happen in the margins, when no one is watching. Except someone was always watching, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, that someone learned to see you as more than a suspect, more than an employee, more than a transaction. Sometimes they learned to see you as someone worth believing in, and sometimes, if you were even luckier, you learned to see yourself the same way.